Welcome to Speaking of Higher Ed, Conversations on Teaching and Learning. I'm Andrew Everett. I hope you'll take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. This is episode 27. Today, I'm speaking with Dr. Cynthia Alby. Dr. Alby is a professor of teacher education at Georgia College and is a lead instructor in the Governor's Teaching Fellows program here in Georgia. Dr. Alby, welcome.
Thank you.
If you'll please just take a moment and tell us about the path that led you to your current role at Georgia College.
Well, I started out as a high school teacher and fairly quickly felt like I wanted to know more. And so I ended up at the University of Georgia working on a doctorate in language education. And that was a really long time ago. Now, I guess it's been more than 30 years that I've been teaching in and around Georgia.
I know that you have taken up a lot of different interests, and so will you tell a little bit, because you're I guess in baseball we'd call you a five-tool player. You really are into a lot of different disciplines. Would you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, my father used to say "Jack of all trades, master of none," and apparently that did not sink in because what is really interesting to me is looking at very broadly at anything that could possibly help me better understand the art of pedagogy. So I read a lot of psychology, sociology, neuroscience, behavioral economics, just anything that I can find that I think could play a role in helping me better understand and then allow me to take what I'm learning to the people that I work with. For example, in the Governor's Teaching Fellows program, which of course has people coming from all over the state of Georgia. So I get a lot of excellent opportunities to work with people from around the state.
Well, I love that thirst for knowledge, and we are looking forward to hearing your knowledge, which you've learned over the past. I guess we're almost at 3 years this year since ChatGPT burst onto the scene. And so that's what we're discussing today, the role of generative AI in education, in higher education. So, Dr. Alby, what initially sparked your interest in exploring the role of generative AI in higher ed?
I mean, I think, as you can probably guess, kind of what I'm known for is staying on the cutting edge of what's happening. And so when ChatGPT burst on the scene, people were immediately, asking me, what do you know? What do you think? What's going to happen? And so it was just fortunate because that was December 2022. We were headed into a break. And so I was really able to take that whole month to just really look at it carefully and start to think about, what things might look like in that coming semester.
And so do you have a generative AI tool that you turn to? Like ChatGPT, or what are you looking at? Well,
when it comes to just general generative AI tools, I have fallen in love with something called Boodlebox, Boodlebox, because it has almost all of the major GPTs. It has, Claude and Gemini and all the chat GPTs. It has a protected version of DeepSeek. And it costs me $20 a month. So instead of getting one AI for $20 a month, they all seem to be $20 a month. I'm getting a whole lot of them, which is just a lot of fun to have them all in one place. I can very quickly and easily put the same chat or same prompt in multiple AIs. That's been kind of fascinating. I really love it.
Interesting. I haven't heard of that, so thanks for sharing that. We'll have to note that in our show notes. So you've also spent the past couple of years speaking all over the country on AI. How have you seen faculty across the country integrating AI into their courses?
It's been interesting. I mean, that's one of the fun things about traveling is just getting to talk to people and hearing what they're doing. Just a few things that pop to mind. There have been a number of people I've talked to who are using AI to give what I would call kind of initial feedback on student work. They feed the student work into the AI with a rubric, and they let the students know that it's AI feedback. But what I think that allows them to do is, if AI is taking care of just that kind of that base level feedback, then they can really focus more time on more nuanced, higher level feedback. So I've really liked that. I've got a friend who uploaded his entire textbook into a bot he created. I know that might sound like it's difficult, but it's not really difficult at all. And that way, his students can query the textbook, and the answers that are given are drawn from that textbook, not from, AI more broadly, heaven only knows what. It's drawing from that textbook. So I love that. I know quite a few folks just over this past month or two have been really excited about the tool called Notebook LM from Google, where they can upload one or more resources, and then at the click of a button, it turns it into a podcast episode with two people talking through the main ideas in what was uploaded. I've seen a lot of people having fun with that. So it's been interesting. And one that I just heard about was a professor who gets all the students working in pairs to come up with the best possible prompt for what they want to try to do. And then they just upload them all into a Google Doc so everyone can see everybody's prompts. And then they talk about, how can we maybe combine the best of several of these to get the most ideal prompt? It's a lot of higher order thinking that's happening there. Really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Those are a lot of great ideas. And Notebook LM, that stands out. I recently played around with that, and I was blown away by the podcast. Yeah. I uploaded a few documents, a few papers, and just playing with it. And it is amazing how quickly it came up with really such a natural conversation. So you could kind of upload your notes and go out for a walk and kind of listen to it drawing on your own work. And that's really neat. That's a good one. Thank you for sharing all of that. Continuing on kind of the opportunities and stuff, what opportunities do you believe AI presents for enhancing student engagement and that personalized learning? I think Notebook LM could be one of those things that could help personalized learning. What are you thinking?
Well, when it comes to engagement, that's probably what I love most about what AI has done for me personally, because it's allowed me to do so much more in terms of just really interesting hooks that I can use at the beginning of a online module or at the beginning of a class period. I've been able to do a lot more in terms of, games and role plays, simulations, case studies, all these kinds of things that I have always wanted to do more of, but I thought, it'll take too much time. I'm not sure I fully understand how to do it well. Now, when I use AI as a kind of a co-thinker, and we work together, I've been able to come up with so many more of those that are, perfectly designed for my context and exactly what it is I'm trying to do. So for engagement, I love those things. For personalization, I love using it for helping students see the relevance of what we're about to study, like literally having just everyone in the room put in a simple prompt like, I'm about to study topic X. How might that be relevant to me as a first-year college student who is studying to be a high school math teacher? Things like that. But I also, I think AI's in many ways pretty ideal for certain types of tutoring because it's available, at 2:00 in the morning. It's always friendly. It, can scale up or scale down depending on the student's needs. So I like that kind of thing. And also, I've been playing around with this idea of the generative textbook, like a regular hard copy textbook. A student takes it home and reads it, and it's the same for everybody. And a generative textbook would be something similar, but using AI, where the student could say at the beginning, here are some specific interests of mine and what my future career is. So as you teach me about X, keep that in mind. It asks the student. It can ask the students questions. The student, if they're not understanding, can ask, can you tell me more about that? So basically, the textbook is tailoring itself to what the student needs. I mean, that's kind of the ultimate in personalization, I think.
So what are some of the primary challenges faculty face when they want to add AI into their courses?
I think one issue is feeling kind of uncomfortable requiring it of students for a number of reasons. One, because the students might feel still kind of uncomfortable, and I get that. And so, for example, in my class, I'll often get students to pair up. So if someone isn't comfortable using it yet, they could pair up with someone who has been using it and already, does feel comfortable. I'm a little concern I have is that the paid versions are really significantly better. It's not a small difference anymore. And so I would obviously prefer my students to be using the ones that cost money, but I absolutely wouldn't feel comfortable requiring that. I think that's definitely a concern. I had a small concern at first that if I encourage students to use it in my class, they could see that as a reason to use it without limits. Like, I'm just going to use it for everything, wise or unwise. But actually, mostly I've seen the opposite, that I think for two reasons. One, because I'm encouraging it, it sort of loses that shine of, ooh, I'm doing something, getting one over on people, or, but also I think that once they really can feel the difference between I just used it in a way that boosted my learning, I've also maybe used it or seen it used in ways that discourage my learning, I feel like students definitely need to have seen both. And for some students, because it hasn't been used in classes, they have only used it in ways that probably harmed their learning, without fully thinking through why that would be problematic. And of course, there's always the kind of an ongoing issue with the AI sometimes hallucinating, just saying things that are frankly just incorrect. That happens less and less now, but it's still something to think about. Or maybe it oversimplifies something. So I feel like you have to be a little bit careful. It's certainly, I find it more useful when I'm teaching about something that there's a lot known about it. It's not some kind of niche thing. It seems to work pretty well for that. When you do start to get into these just really advanced level types of things that are more niche, I haven't been quite as thrilled.
You talk about students wondering, well, can I use it? Can I not use it? Do you put a specific course policy in your syllabus that gives them some guidance on AI? And if so, what is that reading like?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. When I basically say, there are going to be all kinds of activities in this course, and I will always tell you in any given activity whether it's okay to use AI in any way you want, only in very specific ways, or not at all. So they just know that for each activity, I'll let them know.
And what about, are there strategies, especially as you've been around the country speaking, have you heard about or come up with your own strategies that could be used to prepare and support faculty in effectively using AI tools?
Yes, I think at first, when you're preparing and supporting faculty, it's a great idea to just show them loads of examples of wonderful integrations, because that seems to build interest and kind of an understanding of the possibilities. And then I think what I'm not seeing much of, but I wish I was, would be that faculty, if they wanted it, would be provided with a tool that it would be paid for, something like Boodlebox, that the university would pay for, so that they could learn about it using the best quality tools and not have to worry about paying for it month after month. I find it really helps to provide faculty with prompts that are already created and they can just copy and paste them and make a few changes and be ready to go. I keep a list of those that is available to anyone who wants it, so we'll make sure to get those in the show notes. But I think also what faculty just really need at this point is both development and conversation around helping students see the value of what they're learning. I think we need probably more development and conversation around teaching for integrity, and more future thinking, more just getting together as programs, departments, colleges to talk about what are our graduates going to need to know 5 years out, 10 years out? How is education going to have to change to meet those different needs? Yeah.
Yeah, we can't ignore it, right?
We really can't. We just really can't.
What I really probably should have led with this question, but what excites you the most about generative AI in higher ed? What aspect of it really gets you excited every day when you turn on that computer and you pull up Boodlebox?
Yes. I think it's that I can get my students into higher order thinking so much more quickly. In the past, sometimes it was kind of a slog, but very early on, I started to see how through utilizing AI, I could get them there faster. And that's, of course, very exciting to me. I mean, we're all about higher order thinking, right? And I feel like that is something that AI can really do.
Yeah, it's an efficiency. It's really what it helps speed up what we're already working for.
That's right.
So speaking of students, what have you heard from students about using generative AI from your own students or from other faculty that they're talking about what their students are saying? What are you hearing their responses to?
Yeah, one of my favorite things is when I'm invited to speak to students, which I'm a little concerned that has happened kind of rarely. I get asked all the time to come talk to faculty, and only on a few occasions have I been asked to come speak to students. So, let that sink in for a minute. But when I have been able to speak to students, a few of the things I've noticed is that a remarkable number of students find it creepy. And I get that. They haven't used it much because they've heard a lot of very negative things, and it all just feels a little weird. I'm seeing less and less of that, and fewer students who have never used it much. But especially initially, there was some of that. They are definitely very concerned about how it will affect their job prospects. If they aren't well prepared, I think they're worried that will affect their job prospects, or that jobs that they are preparing for might no longer be needed, or in a lot of cases, like for example, someone who works for a law firm, and maybe in the past it would have taken 4 people to do the job that law firm needed. Maybe now a single person with AI could do it. And so they're going to need fewer of those types of jobs, right? So students are definitely worried about that, and I fully get that. Ooh, and this is a very interesting one. They're worried about the lack of fairness of other people using it unethically. Like they feel like, well, I'm only using it ethically, but I see other people in my same class getting higher grades than I am because they're using it unethically. That also makes me very uncomfortable. If I had a magic wand, I would definitely consider how we could kind of decouple the learning from the grade or the learning from the credential. that would remove a lot of the problem, but it turns out I don't have a magic wand. Maybe sometime, I mean, I'm hoping this is kind of the nail in the coffin that makes us think about an issue like that, the fairness and lack thereof when some people are using it and unethically and others aren't.
You've used AI, obviously, to enhance your course design. Can you talk about a little more? We've talked about it's an efficiency, but what other highlights are there to using AI in your course design?
Yeah, of course, course design is my thing. I mean, it's literally the book I wrote is on course design. And a story I like to tell is from I'm going to tell you two stories, in fact. The very first semester, when we were just coming back, January 2023, and AI had just been like plopped in our laps. What I did that semester was I thought about a story that a friend had told me many, many years before. Maybe 20 years ago or so, she was teaching a course in landscape architecture at UGA, Marguerite Kepke, and e-portfolios were the big thing. And so she had gotten this grant to have all the various computers that were needed at that time to create these high-level e-portfolios for architects. And so the course was e-portfolios. It's the first day. They all come into the room with all these computers. And she says to them, I have no idea how to work any of these computers, but I do know what a good portfolio looks like. And together, we're gonna figure this out. She said it was one of the greatest classes she ever taught because she was truly a co-learner with the students. And so that first semester back, I thought, all I can think to do is that. I'm just going to walk into the room and say, hey, everybody, turns out this new thing is on the scene that we cannot ignore. And what we're going to do is we're just going to experiment together, and we're going to share what comes out of those experiments. It was fantastic, and I've tried to kind of keep that as my general ethos going forward. But by that summer, you know, I was familiar enough that I could maybe take it kind of to the next level. And I was teaching a class that I've taught literally for 20 years, where these future teachers learn to write unit plans and lesson plans. And the first lesson plans they write usually, it is a slog like you cannot believe. It takes them so long to write like a single lesson plan for a 50-minute class period. And it really takes the whole semester of just a whole lot of slogging to get to the point where they're even doing it kind of efficiently. So I thought, well, what if I came at it from a different angle? What if on the very first day I gave them a high quality prompt and let them use it to create a lesson plan that fit their context. So I might have someone in the room who's planning to become a high school physics teacher. So, you know, he's going to put one in that's for that. I might have another person who's going to be a middle school math teacher. And so she would, you know, make that her context. So the students use the prompt, and out rolls a lovely lesson plan because I'd written a good prompt for it. They were so excited. Like, I've written my first lesson plan. Had they really? Not entirely. But instead of that initial feeling of like slog, the initial feeling was very positive. And I told students, you can use this AI as much as you want to during this semester. Just always let me know how you're using it. And from there, as I said, I never told students to do this, but bit by bit, as they learned more about lesson planning, they used the AI less and less and less. So that by the end, they were using it pretty much like I do. I do not use it to write entire lesson plans. I usually develop a lesson plan, and then I think, this one piece of it isn't so great. I'm going to ask the AI, give me 5 other ways I could make this part more engaging, or make sure this part makes the learning really stick. And so that's how they were using it. And I thought, when there's something that I've always done where at the end of the semester, each student just gets a big whiteboard and a pen and nothing else. And they create a series of units that, or series of lessons that create a unit with nothing, no computer, nothing, just a whiteboard and a pen. And we just see what happens. And I thought, oh, here's where it's all going to fall down. Because I didn't have them go through that initial slog, I'm not sure, that have they leaned too much on the AI? And that is not what happened at all. They were the best I had ever seen. And again, at this point, they were not using a smidgen of AI at all. So that just really, I don't know, that took my breath away. And that's when I realized, the AI is kind of like training wheels, so that students can get up and going faster and with more joy, as opposed to, me sticking someone on a bicycle and just kind of pushing it and they fall over and get scabbed, Yeah, it was remarkable.
That's a great way to put it. And I guess it makes sense when you think about, the AI at first was helping offload some of that learning, so they could maybe focus in on areas that were of interest or what they could identify maybe things they didn't understand. And after a while, I guess you got it. And you kind of, like you said, take off the training wheels. And that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to talk a little bit about the future. In your view, what is the most critical consideration for the future of generative AI in higher education?
Well, I've already touched on this a little, but I think we just have to drastically increase our focus on two things. One, value. Because when the learning matters, students will do the work. When they see it as valuable and they want that learning, then you don't have to worry about cheating. The issues arise when students are asked to do things that they don't see as valuable. And so I really feel like moving into the future, we've got to do two things. Help students see the value, but also to make what we're asking of them increasingly valuable. And then that other piece, and again, we've talked about this a little, is teaching for integrity. I think that we have always imagined someone else was doing it. Someone in some previous grade or in some other class, and that we didn't have to maybe explicitly teach for integrity. But I think that was never true. It was always, I think, just being kind of pushed to the wayside by everyone. And we can't do that anymore. We all have to be weaving that into every course. What does it mean to develop integrity in students? Develop ethical thinking in students. Yeah, definitely. There's a new book coming out that the subtitle, I think, is Teaching for Integrity. It's called The Opposite of Cheating. It's just coming out this month. Tricia Bertram-Gallant is one of the authors. And I think from the podcasts and so forth that I've heard with her, I think it's going to be an incredible book. But also, I think as we look to the future, institutions are going to really have to think about providing faculty with release time or paid summer time, plus support to make this happen. It's not reasonable to think that this, which I would say is the most massive disruptor in my career, it's not reasonable to think that faculty are just going to kind of figure it out when they're already overwhelmed. And now I've got to figure this out too. I'm struggling, and I'm an expert at pedagogy, at course design. So if I'm struggling, how much more so are probably other people struggling? And really, what they need is time and support. And institutions are going to have to provide that, or it's going to be ugly.
You mentioned earlier your book, and I want to come back to that. Learning That Matters, a field guide to course design for transformative education, I believe released in 2020, correct?
That's right.
So Tell us a little bit about it. Give us a preview, if you will.
So it's the subtitle is, it's a field guide. And we use that word, my co-authors and I use that word very explicitly to try to send the message that this book is practical. Very much it leads one through the stages of building either a new course from scratch or redesigning a course. Very, very, very practical. And the outcome at the other side, after reading the book, would be that you have that value that I was talking about before. I mean, the title is Learning That Matters. What we're trying to do is think about how do we create courses where students very much see the value day in and day out and want it. That's what we're shooting for. I feel like the book really does it well. It's been adopted at a lot of schools around the country for new faculty orientations, but also more veteran faculty using it as a book for a book club where they can kind of work through it together.
That's a great idea. And before we wrap up, I'll shift back a little bit to AI. I want to ask continuing the conversation question, which is what advice would you offer to educators who are hesitant about adopting AI into their teaching methods?
I would say start by just using it yourself, not asking students to use it, by using it yourself to do some of the things you've always wanted to do or do more of. I would recommend using copy and paste prompts. Like I said, I have what I call a spell book of copy and paste prompts. Ethan Malik has one. Lipscomb University has one. They aren't that hard to find. And that allows you to not have to worry so much at first about how to get the prompt right, because someone else has kind of done that for you. So I really recommend just using it for yourself at first, and then maybe think about how would I perhaps want my students using it, or maybe you don't. I think that's also a reasonable approach to take. I think the good news is, I really want people to hear this, is that it can reduce workload. Yeah, much to be said for that. But it can bring so much joy and fun, novelty. It's, and the learning curve, I can't remember how the word learning curve works, but it's not difficult. Like, seriously, the first 2 or 3 hours, are a little bit of like, wait, what's happening? How? But after maybe even just 10 hours of use, most people I know are just really flying with it. It is not difficult to learn at all. Maybe sit down with a friend who's using it a good bit and, say, here's what I think I might want to do. Can you show me how I would do that? Yeah. I mean, there is joy to be had here.
Yeah. It's a little bit intimidating at first, maybe. Mm-hmm. But once you get into it, It's like it's almost addicting. You're like, oh, well, I wonder if I could get it to do this. I wonder if I could find out this. And then it becomes a lot of fun, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dr. Alby, for being with us. Thank you for that advice. How could listeners connect with you online?
I think probably two of the best ways. One would be, if you've got questions, feel free to email me. My email is pretty simple, cynthia.alby, A-L-B-Y, at gcsu.edu. And also, we've got a great website that goes along with the book. The website is learningthatmatters.weebly.com. And on our resource page, we have loads of resources that I think anyone in higher ed would enjoy. But literally the very first one you can click on is the copy and paste prompts. And then the second one is my curated list of just great AI resources. I'm very, very picky about what I put on that curated list. So anyone who wants more information, that might be a good place to start.
Well, thank you for compiling those resources, and we'll be sure to add them to our show page. Again, thank you for joining us. I'm glad to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
The conversation continues on our Facebook page at facebook.com/AUGCII. Please contribute your thoughts on today's topic and other episodes. You can find more on our show page at augusta.edu/innovation. Please take a moment to rate, review, subscribe, and share this podcast. We release new episodes the third Wednesday of each month in spring and fall semesters. Speaking of Higher Ed is produced by the Center for Instructional Innovation at Augusta University.